How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be making a DIY tortilla press. This is something fun and a little bit challenging. It took me a lot longer than I expected it to take. For today's project, we're going to be using some scrap wood. This includes some walnut, cherry, and maple. Now these pieces aren't very long. They're about 1 foot in length. So the goal is that we're going to be making a tortilla press that can produce tortillas the size of the corn tortillas you'll find in the store. So not very big, about 5 inches in diameter. For starters, I'm going to be milling up the pieces. I'm going to making one side at least flat, then running through the planer to make sure that all the pieces are the same thickness. The problem with using scrap wood is that your thicknesses can differ, so it's important to do this step. That way every piece is the same if you want to have a consistent pattern. Now the idea behind this is essentially we're going to make a long cutting board, and then we're going to cut it in half to get 2 different boards. Cutting boards are good beginner projects, and this one is if you want to take it up to the next level. You're essentially going to be using everything you learned in cutting boards and how to make them, and now you're just going to be adding on some extra steps and taking a little more time on details. Some of these extra steps include adding bolts, washers, nuts, and hinges. And you're going to be cutting into the board a little bit, adding posts, securing it with some dowels and things of that nature. When it comes to the pre-glue up, all I'm doing is I'm organizing the pattern, and I'm going to make sure that I don't have 2 of the same species of wood next to each other. That way it gives it some variety. When it comes to the actual glue up, make sure you use a lot of glue. Make sure you spread it around everywhere. This is going to be the end grain portions of the board, so it absorbs a lot of the glue. So make sure you use a lot of it so you don't have any gaps or cracks. Now I ended up adding a couple extra pieces of wood just because I had some extra pieces that I found, and I didn't think I was going to have a big enough board to cut in half and then create the press. So I did that right after the first glue up. And then I'm just going to plane down the piece to make sure it's nice and flat and gets rid of all the extra glue squeeze out that I missed. Now I'm going to start trimming up the edges. I'm going to start with one side, making it nice and flat. And yes, I did get some kickback on that one. Then I'm going to trim up the other edge and take off all the excess wood that I didn't need. And now I'm going to be taking the table saw and I'm going to be cutting down the middle to create 2 equal sized boards. The table saw can leave some rough edges, so I'm going to be using some 80 grit sandpaper in my sander just to clean up the edges and some of the burn marks. Now at this point in the build, I found some cracks in the board that I wanted to fix before I continued on. So I'm going to be using some glue and some of my sawdust from my sander to create a wood putty. This wood putty blends in very well, it sands off very easily, and when it's all said and done, you won't even notice that there was a crack there. Now I'm just measuring a spare walnut piece that I found, and this is what I'm going to be using for the 2 posts for my handle. And I'm also measuring the top portion of it so I know how much I need to take off so that there's no overlap. Now using my table saw, I'm going to be cutting that walnut piece to make sure that it's straight and even, and also that same cut I'm going to use on the top portion of the build so there's no overlap and no gaps. So that cutoff that I had for the top portion is actually going to be my handle. And so right here I'm marking where I want the handle to go. That way I can mark where I want my post to be. Then right here I'm going to be using my jigsaw to cut out some slots for my post. So right here, I'm going to be using my jigsaw to cut out some curves on the handle ends. And these are just something that I drew. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something. And then I'm going to be using my sander just to make those ends very smooth and circular. Now I didn't include the sanding portion of this build just because it's too long and I didn't want to bore you guys with it. But I did include this part where I did some roundovers on the actual boards itself. It's because I really like this tabletop router. It's awesome, very easy to use and easy to set up, and as you can see it just glides on through each time I make a pass. It does a good job and I'd highly recommend it. And then here I'm going to be marking out the corners where I'm going to put some non-slip feet, and I'm going to do some pre-drilling as well for those non-slip feet. Now I'm going to be prepping the hinges, and to do so I'm also going to be sticking a stack of paper in between just to give me the correct thickness and spacing that I want for the hinges. Now this little cherry strip is going to be a little push bar on the top piece, and I'm just going to attach it with glue and wood dowels. Once the piece is glued on and the dowels are in place, I'm going to be using my trim saw to trim up the excess. And I can't tell you how much I recommend you guys have one of these trim saws in your shop. They're fantastic and easy to use, and they're very inexpensive. And here's a clip of me just testing the hinges to make sure it works and everything is set up how I want it. Now I included this clip so that everybody else does not have to make the same mistake that I made. I was trying to drill the hole through the handle and the post, and I ended up breaking the handle in half because I put too much pressure. So I ended up fixing it by just gluing it, and it's worked. Luckily I didn't break the handle too bad and I was able to glue it back together. But just don't make the same mistake that I made. Now here I'm going to be attaching the post to the base, and to do so I'm going to be using some wood glue and just fitting it into the slot. Now these posts, because they're integrated with the base, are going to have side to side support, but they're not going to have a lot of other support. So I want to pre-drill a hole all the way through the bottom of the base and attach the post to the base with some screws, and then cover them up with some wood dowels. Now I'm going to be using some mineral spirits to clean up the project itself before I apply on some wood finish. The nice thing about mineral spirits is it gives us a sneak peek of what it's going to look like at the end. For the finish, I'm going to be using my very own board butter, and it's great because it's food safe, it's easy to apply, and it lasts a long time. Plus, it smells great too. After about 24 hours, the mineral oil in the board butter has soaked into the wood, and now it's time to wipe off the beeswax and excess on the top. And then I'm going to be reattaching the hinges. Now I'm going to be adding the non-slick feet to the bottom of the base. And these feet are so inexpensive yet add so much value to your project, you almost have to add them. For the final part of the project, I'm going to be attaching the handle to the post. And I'm going to be using a 3-inch bolt, some washers, and a locking nut to do so. Now, one of my friends asked me why I use washers to attach the handle. The reason why I use washers is because they act like a shim. This reduces the amount of movement or play that the handle has, so there's no wiggle room. It operates smoothly. The washers themselves weren't very easy to install, but they made a world of a difference when using the handle. The handle is smooth and easily moves up and down with no issue and no play. And there you have it, a tortilla press. Thank you for watching. We hope that you all enjoyed the video. As you can see, this tortilla press produces perfectly round tortillas. They're going to be ready for you to fry up and enjoy with any of your tacos or whatever you want to use tortillas for. Thank you.